realize that every ballot is going to be recounted, and if that happens, cat eat their dinner, because how they would lie, how they would change the ballots, if every ballot is taken out of the box and counted one by one. How that can be a flawed process. They did not want that to happen, because they know that once that happens, that is the end of them. So they went to court with Yolita Moore and a whole set of proceedings to try to stop that from happening. And when that failed, then the recount began. And they sat at GECOM, Vincent Alexander, Desmond Trotman, and Charles Corbin sat in that room for weeks at GECOM with the PPP commissioners and the chairperson, and they crafted the recount order. As much as Vincent Alexander and Corbin and Trotman would want you to believe that they are independent commissioners, they are not. They are not. They are servants and or agents of the PNC. They are put there by the PNC. They were nominated from that party. How suddenly they are free and independent agent. So when they sat down and they worked out the terms of that recount order, it is the PNC that worked it out. It is the AFC and the PNC together that worked out the terms of that order. And just like how they agreed in 1997 in the parliament for the use of a voter's ID card, and then later when they lost the election, they challenged the very use of that voter ID card. They sat down and they crafted an order under which the recount would be done, and then run like spineless backstabbers, run back to court when they lost the recount to say that the recount order is illegal. They sat down and drafted that with the PPP commissioners. And like duplicitous hypocrites, turn around and want to challenge the legality of the very thing that they drafted. Because why? They didn't win it. They stopped Carter Center from coming. They did not want us to do live coverage of the recount. They removed cell phones from inside the recount centers. All of that they did because they don't want public scrutiny. If you are fair and you are transparent and you have nothing to hide, why you don't want people to observe the recount? Why you block the Carter Center from coming back? But they said that CARICOM must overlook the process. Well, CARICOM did. And the CARICOM team said that the recount process was fair, that the recount process was transparent, that it was credible, and that the results of that process must be used as the basis for the final declaration of results. When the CARICOM team produced their report, they caused the CARICOM team too. They repudiated the CARICOM team's report because it did not sing their foolish, outlandish story and narrative of rigged elections. Then the world saw what they did again, trying to use low and feel to manipulate the election results. Not to use the recount results, but to use Mingo fraudulent results in his report to the commission. The whole world saw Mingo do that, Low and Field do that, upon their directions. And then they went to court about 3 times again, and they lost everything. And now when they filed their petition, and as the Chief Justice said, they did not lead any evidence of this alleged wrongdoing. They said that they were going to do this petition based on pure law. Well, they lost based on pure law. They could have never won based on pure law. You cannot, the law is not an ass. The law is not going to be manipulated, not by people who are so dunce. You sit down, you agree to a process, the whole world witness it, and then when it does not lead to an outcome that you find acceptable, you want to deprecate the whole process. You want to annul the whole process. Life is not like that. These things are not permitted. And when the Chief Justice threw out their case, And go and look at the arguments that they advanced. Nothing of substance. And when they lose the case, they start to cuss down and abuse down the court. And I listened to Harman. Joseph Harman is one of the most disgraceful political leaders this country has produced. When I listened to that man yesterday, he has failed his constituents. He has failed his party. He has failed the people who voted for them. And rather than accept the blame, he blames the judiciary. He puts the blame on the judiciary. And he cries to the world that a fraud has been perpetrated against him and his party, when it is they who the world saw attempting to perpetrate a fraud. 100 countries in the world came out in condemnation of them. And this guy with a straight face stands up and tells the world that they have been the victim of fraud and that the PPP is an illegally installed government. Well, the more they say that, the more backward people realize, the more backward they become, the more irrelevant they become. Every time they say those things, when the world reflects and the world realizes that this is a bunch of people who are not mentally stable, that is the problem there. So, Mr. Harman says that dead people voted, boxes were opened at the recount and documents were missing, and there are a host of identities missing and a host of irregularities and wholesale fraud. Well, in two petitions, not one, you and your political party and your leadership and your team of lawyers had an opportunity twice in two petitions to present all this evidence of fraud to the court. You had two opportunities. Why you didn't do it? Why didn't you do it? And why don't you accept that it is your abject irresponsibility? It is your incompetence as leader and that of your team that caused you not to be able to present the evidence that you're now presenting on Facebook and at the street corner. These people have no dignity and have no shame. So he issued a veiled statement saying that the AFC cannot and will not be held responsible for the reaction of the victimized and the disenfranchised and the marginalized masses. Who victimized by whom? It's only you and your party victimizing your supporters. Who disenfranchised whom? Why don't you show the world your statement of poll? Where are your statements of poll? And you are threatening people that you can control what will happen. These people have no place in a modern society. Leaders like Harman have no place in a modern society. I keep saying over and over again, the quicker we get rid of people of that caliber, the better for the society. And that is why in these moments you have to reflect upon what is going on in the PNC and who were removed from the top echelon of their leadership and replaced by whom. Look at that bunch sitting in the parliament. So you don't have responsible leaders with constituencies I have my differences, major differences, with certain leaders in the PNC, but I have respect for them because I know that they have a constituency, I know that they are politicians, I know that they understand politics, and I speak of the persons such as Walter Lawrence, Aubrey Norton, and these people. And these people were sidelined for this bunch that we have in the parliament, most of whom people do not know. I don't know them. If I see half of them on the road, I don't know who they are. I've never seen them before. And this bunch of rabble-rousers do nothing else but to create mischief on Facebook, and they are led by an equally recalcitrant and visionless leader in the form of Joe Harman, who I don't know what he does. He doesn't come to court, he's a lawyer. He doesn't do anything, he doesn't make any constructive criticism. But yesterday he was lambasting the judiciary, implying that the judiciary is politicized, attacking the Chief Justice's reputation. And only the other day, I don't know if he was pitching to the judiciary when he was asking for the confirmation of the Chancellor and the Chief Justice. Perhaps he was pitching. He was playing politics. He was hoping that that may have gotten their attention, and somehow he would have benefited from some form or fashion. Maybe that is what inspired that statement, because it came out of nowhere. And then just a few weeks after, the Chief Justice is the worst judge ever because the Chief Justice ruled against them. Just last week, the Chief Justice ruled in their favor in the case filed by Christopher Jones against the two parliamentary secretaries appointed by the President. They won that case. The Chief Justice was the judge. You didn't hear a word of criticism. But now they lost this one, and the Chief Justice is now the worst judge ever. And this guy is quoting Martin Luther King. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. You lose a case that you shouldn't file in the first place, and that's injustice? That's not injustice. That is justice. That is justice. And they will lose the appeal too. They will lose the appeal in the first one, and they will lose the appeal in this one. Because it's not grounded in truth. It's not grounded in reality. It is not grounded in morality. The law follows righteousness. The law is not a crooked barbed wire that you can manipulate to suit your evil ends. The law accords with fairness. The law pursues justice. If your cause is not just, the law will not assist you. The law will not assist you. In fact, the law will destroy you. And that is what the law is doing to them. So, they said that they will file an appeal, and we are patiently awaiting for that appeal to be filed. And we are patiently waiting for the Court of Appeal to rule in the second petition, where he will cause the Court of Appeal this time now. Because as I said, I can't anticipate how they are going to win these cases. And of course, I must condemn those who are masquerading on Regent Street, throwing garbage around and trying to maliciously damage people's property and making themselves a nuisance on the streetways of this country. I don't know who those people are, and I don't know, and of course they were being encouraged by some regular lunatics who are on Facebook. I see them, whenever I am on Facebook, encouraging them, telling them that they are unarmed and condemning the police. Well, These are the moments that they remind Guyanese people who they truly are. And these are the moments that I wait for, because I want the electorate to continue to see that very little has changed. That once a dog used to suck egg, it will always suck egg. So they were raring to go. They would have been happy for an opportunity to rob and beat people and create mayhem and loot the stores on Regent Street if the police was not there. That is their modus operandi. If you see them running up the streets at Border, what those poor people at Border Market has to do with the ruling in the elections? What the vendors of Border Market have to do with the ruling in the court? But no, they wanted to loot the people's stalls. They wanted to thief the people greens and vegetables. But fortunately, the police were there in their numbers and prevented any such unfortunate occurrences. But those are the people that Harman is saying he can't control and he will not bear responsibility for their actions. But he is indirectly supporting them and what they are doing on the road. Well, one day they will turn on him and they will turn on leaders like them, because I can't continue to think that people are that stupid and are going to continue to allow themselves to be manipulated to such an extent. Every rope has an end. And these political leaders, these hypocrites who are masquerading as political leaders and who continue to mislead people as they attempt to survive, what you heard from Harman there was a plea for survival, a plea, a grope in the wind for survival, trying to shift blame from himself and shift blame from his leadership over to the judiciary and over to the PPP. That is what he was doing there. But people are intelligent now. Now is not long ago where people are not exposed. People are looking at the internet. People are looking at television. People are seeing the world is moving on. And people are seeing that there is no place for leaders of that mentality. Those were the days of Burnham and those were the backward days of dictatorship. That level of ignorance will not be tolerated at any leadership level in this country anymore. So let them continue to perpetuate that style of leadership, and they will continue to remain where they are, far away from any responsible position. Last week, we visited the residents of number 46 village on the Quarantine Coast in an effort to resolve an issue that has been outstanding for decades. And that issue is to regularize the occupation of those people in that village. That village has an unfortunate evolution. It was, or it is owned by several persons by certificate of title. Different portions are owned by different persons. And the villagers, the ordinary villagers, have been living there, some of them paying rent for the lands for decades, even since their foreparents were there. And they continue to pay rent, some of them up to today. Some of them have stopped paying rent. Some of them have purchased and were never given their title. So, a long time ago, we had promised that we will inquire into the matter and bring a resolution to it. During the election campaign, we met with the people and we promised that once we get into government, we will deliver on that promise and finally bring that matter to an end. So last week I went up there and met with the people with a view of delivering on that promise. And a process has begun. I am not at liberty to disclose the process, at least not at this stage, but a process has begun which will result in many of the persons being issued with formal title. Once we get rid of that first batch, then depending on the technicality or the technical legal issues, we will fashion a solution for the others. I see people making some very uncomplimentary and uneducated remarks on Facebook that how the government will take private lands. The government is not taking private lands. Whatever engagement the government embarks upon in relation to these lands, having regard to the fact that they are private lands, trust me, it would be engagements that are lawful and that are legal and that will result in the resolution of these issues with the formal issuance of title to these people in a lawful manner. This government is not illegal and will not act unlawfully, at least not once I am here as the Attorney General. So whenever you see the government embarking on a path or a course of action, please assume that the government is proceeding lawfully. If that word is not there, please assume that it will be done lawfully. And don't jump to foolish conclusions, as I've seen people accusing me of, going into the village and taking away private property. I carefully write when I put something on Facebook. Go back and read those posts and you will see. I carefully construct my language when I speak so that I don't make these kinds of errors. So when you see the government is engaging with citizens over dispute in relation to lands or other aspects of state assets, please assume that the government is acting lawfully and will act lawfully. So that is an ongoing process. A similar exercise will be undertaken this Thursday at Cotton Tree on West Coast Berbice. Here is another area where persons have been living as a community for decades, and for whatever reason, titles have never been issued to them. When I was Attorney General on the last occasion, we had commenced a process, and I want to give credit to my colleague Priya Manik Chand and Adrian Anamayan. Both had helped me at the time, and that process had commenced. But after we lost government, and then you didn't have a High Court, Land Court judge in Berbice for a while, that process fell apart. This Thursday, I am going back to Cotton Tree at the primary school, where we will be meeting the residents with officials from the Lands and Surveys Department, and efforts will be made to resume that process so that title can be issued as well for that area. I want to make another public announcement, and it is that the vaccination outreach, which was supposed to take place at Annandale the place where I do my public outreach program, will have to be rescheduled because I did not realize at the time that Saturday is a public holiday. So the staff at the Ministry of Health will not be working Saturday, and as a consequence, I will not be able to proceed with that vaccination exercise. I am hoping to get it done the following Saturday. So please, Saturday the 1st of May is Labor Day and it's a national holiday. So the vaccination program, which was supposed to take place at Annandale on the East Coast, will not take place, but will be postponed to another day, hopefully next Saturday. I received some questions and I am going to answer them. There is one question here which is asking me whether there would be a shortage of AstraZeneca vaccine in Guyana since India has basically been using up all the AstraZeneca vaccine produced because of their pandemic in India. And the question is, do we have enough in Guyana for the second dose? That's a very good question, and the information that I have is that the government of Guyana has already secured enough AstraZeneca vaccine to administer as a second dose for those who have received the first dose already. So the answer to that question is yes, the government has enough AstraZeneca vaccine to administer the second dose to those who have already received the first dose. And that question came from Daisy Petal Jawahir. There's another question, Kumar Singh, Raymond Ali. When is the GECOM chairman going to fire Lowenfield, Myers and others? When will the government audit GECOM? Two very good questions. When would GECOM chairman fire Lowenfield, etc.? Now, as you know, the government cannot dictate how GECOM operates, and that is how a democratic society functions. Independent constitutional agencies are not directed to by the government, unlike when the PNC, APNU, AFC was in government, and Harman wrote to the Police Service Commission on behalf of the President, directing the Commission to halt police promotion. I went to the court and I got that decision quashed. Or when Simona Brooms wrote to the Public Service Commission on behalf of the President, directing that public service promotion be halted. I went to court and I challenged that as well. And this is not, we are not operating like how they were operating when they were giving Patterson direction, the man whom they fraudulently installed as the chairperson of GECOM. That is how an undemocratic society operated. This is a democracy. So we can't instruct GECOM. GECOM, as all the courts have pointed out, and as I have repeatedly pointed out based upon the Constitution and the relevant statutory provisions, GECOM has the power to hire and fire staff as they feel fit. The Commission, the staff are subject to the direction and control of the Commission. The Commission hires them and the Commission can fire them. When the Commission will do so, I don't know. You are free to write letters to Chief Justice Chairman Claudette Singh and ask her that question yourself. I want to know that myself. I don't know. What I can tell you is that the PPP commissioners who are there, Sez Ganraj, Bibi Shadiq and Manoj Narayan, will bring all the requisite pressure to bear to ensure that these people are not hired or their employment is terminated. And we have good cause in law to terminate their employment. Not only because they are charged and before the court, but the whole world saw what they have done. I don't need any court to tell me what I have seen for myself. I have seen Low and Field attempting to steal the election results. I have seen Myers acting as his deputy, carrying out his nefarious plans. And I have seen what Mingo did. So no, I don't need a court to tell me. They need to be dismissed. But it's a matter for the commission. But the government will do whatever the government can do, having regard to its constitutional restrictions, to ensure that these people are removed from that place, GECOM. What will the police do about Harman inciting instability? He's trying to create his threat on the social media. Oh, that's the statement I was speaking about. I am not in a position to answer that question. I don't know what the police will do, but I agree that the statements were incendiary, the statements were inflammatory, and the statements can be interpreted as almost seditious and can be interpreted as an encouragement to create riotous conduct in Guyana. It is capable of that interpretation. I am looking at some more questions. There are a lot of questions here. Motorcycle robbery has gone too far. What your government is going to do to put brakes on these motorcycle crime? Well, the crime rate continues to be a major source of concern for our government. Minister Robeson Ben is continuing his best efforts. The police force, I know, are trying, but obviously the efforts are not enough. I have asked that the police force put out the data, because the police force claims that there is a reduction in serious crimes and they have the statistics to show. So I have asked that they make those statistics public and the press do news stories and do analysis with these statistics to first verify whether they are accurate and highlight whether they are, if they are accurate and there is actually a reduction, well then yes, we must recognize the police force for their efforts. The motorcycle bandits, we have to continue to strengthen the laws. We have to continue to ensure that the persons who are arrested, who are found committing these offenses, are arrested and successfully prosecuted. And we are working on systems. We are working on systems to bring the entire machinery into a stronger position so that we can have greater rate of conviction and we can do something that will arrest the crime situation, which I agree, as I said, is becoming quite a worrying thing. Good evening, sir. I'm kindly asking for the government to address the drug shortage at Bartika Hospital. Well, we keep getting these reports that there are drugs shortages at various health centers throughout the country, and it's not a new problem. It's a problem that the government is grappling with. The government is buying, as you can see from the budgetary allocations, huge quantities of drugs, large enough to satisfy our medical demands, but there continues to be challenges in getting the drugs to the various peripheral parts of Guyana. It continues to be a challenge to get the drugs from the main bond and the main bonds to the various health centers across the country. I know that wherever I go, people complain about shortages of drugs. And I know that we buy drugs and I know that we have the drugs. But I don't know how is it that we can't seem to get it to the health centers and to the regional areas in a timely fashion. That is something that we continue have to work to improve. But the first step in solving a problem is recognizing that the problem exists. And I want to take this opportunity to recognize that this is a problem because people are complaining right across the length and breadth of Guyana about this problem. What action is being taken to get contractors who do substandard work to remedy their work? Well, you have seen that we have been, first of all, we have made it clear to the contractors that we are trying to give everyone a fair opportunity. We have relaxed some of the procurement protocols to allow a wider pool of contractors to participate. We have also relaxed some of the requirements to ensure that contractors get a fairer opportunity, in particular the new contractors. We have also looked at certain grounds upon which bids are being disqualified. For example, if it is not in electronic form and it's only submitted manually, is that a ground for dismissing or disqualifying a bidder? It seemed to be so. We have reviewed those things to ensure that evaluators act more fairly and they do not insist on requirements that are simply nonsensical. What is wrong if a man submits his bid in hard copy but didn't send one electronically? How can that be a basis for his disqualification? A basis for his disqualification must either be the price or his inability to deliver the contract of a quality contemplated by the contractor. The fact that he didn't put a hard copy bid or he didn't put a soft copy bid in can't affect his ability to get a contract. So those things have been reviewed and are being reviewed. And the whole process is being modified and amended and made fairer so that you get a greater number of persons participating. And however, we have to continue to insist that when substandard work is being done, contracts will be terminated and the full contract penalties will be imposed. Liquidated demands will be imposed. Loss of use of premises by the state will be a ground upon which we will seek compensation against the contractors. And of course, we will seek compensation generally for breach of contract, as well as we will install a regime that will affect persons or contractors' ability to get work in the future if they are guilty of persistent breach of contract. You can't have a system that treats delinquent contractors the same way as you treat non-delinquent contractors. The fact that you are a delinquent contractor must affect your ability to get a contract. So it's a whole regime of incentives and requirements and protocols that are being implemented to ensure that we get good quality work for money spent, because as a government, it is our responsibility to ensure that the best value for dollar is received. And when the procurement process is complied with and a contractor is produced, we have very little to say about it. But if he does not perform his contract, well then we have a lot to say after that. So yes, we are moving in the direction of holding contractors responsible for the quality of work, and we will continue to vigilantly scrutinize the contract works that are being done, and in particular the role of the engineer or the clerk of works. The engineer for a project or the clerk of works are the personnel whose responsibility it is to protect the government's interest and to ensure that the contract is being performed in the manner contemplated by the contractual documents. It is those personnel who must also ensure that the materials used by the contractors are of the same quality provided for in the bill of quantities. So if the bill of quantities says green heart or kabakali must be the wood to be used, you can use walaba or some other wood because you would be breaching the contract. And persons are being paid to ensure that these things do not happen. But of course, obviously, there are hemorrhages along the system, and we are aware that persons get through, contractors get through with substandard work. But it's not going to be continued for long. Every day, the bucket goes to the well. One day, the bottom will be left there. So, this is where I have to say that we have come to the end of our program tonight. My operators are signaling to me that we are approaching program time. I have answered as many of the questions sent to me, and I hope I have done so to your satisfaction. Next week, I will try to get some more questions passed to me because it's difficult to read the questions as I'm speaking and to respond to them. So I prefer that someone give it to me on paper and I can read and attempt to answer to the best of my ability. So this is another component that I have added to make the program more responsive and to ensure that you play a part and you feel as though you are a part of the program. I will continue to try to make the program more and more interesting as time goes by. But here is where I have to say thank you very much for being with me over the past 55 minutes or so. I think that we have had a very fruitful discussion, and I want to take this opportunity to wish all of our workers happy Labor Day. May the 1st, Saturday coming, is a national holiday where we pay homage and respect to our workers, our laborers, and the working people of our country. I want to take this opportunity to stand in solidarity with all the workers of our country. You work every day, we work every day, and we must salute each other for our efforts as we continue in a joint enterprise to help our country. So happy May Day or happy Labor Day to all of you, because I will not be speaking to you from now until May the 1st. And Until then, I say enjoy the rest of the week, stay safe, and I'll see you next week, Tuesday, as we continue our discussions on this program. Thank you very much and good evening.